My identical twin stole my college essay and nearly got me expelled. Years later, she manipulated my fiancé with lies, destroyed my engagement, and married him on my wedding date. Now he's begging for forgiveness, trapped in a miserable marriage, but I rejected him and left them to live with the consequences. I'm 27 years old. I work as a freelance graphic designer, and I need to get this story off my chest because what happened a year and a half ago basically destroyed any concept I had of family, love, and trust. The truth is, there are still days when I wake up and I can't believe it actually happened, you know? Like my brain refuses to process that the people I loved most in this world could do something like this to me. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I was born. I'm an identical twin. I mean, my sister, Brianna, and I are literally exact copies of each other, at least physically. Same face, same height, same eye color, everything. But that's where the similarities end, because for as long as I can remember, my parents treated Brianna like she was the eighth wonder of the world and me like I was her defective shadow. And when I say for as long as I can remember, I mean literally from the first memories I have of my childhood. I remember I was like 5 years old, maybe 6, and we were at a family gathering. We had both made drawings in preschool, those typical horrible drawings little kids make of their family as stick figures, you know. My mom took Brianna's drawing and stuck it on the refrigerator and told her it was beautiful, that she had so much talent, that she was going to be a great artist. Mine she looked at for 3 seconds and said, "Oh, how cute, Rachel," and left it on the table. She didn't put it anywhere. That drawing ended up in the trash that same day. And that was just the beginning of a pattern that would repeat itself for the next 20-something years of my life. It didn't matter what I did or how good I was at something, Brianna was always better in my parents' eyes. When we both got good grades, Brianna was the genius, and I had simply gotten lucky, or the test had been easy. When we both played soccer in high school, they went to all of Brianna's games and missed mine because, I quote, they had already seen a game that week and they're all the same. When we turned 15, Brianna had a huge party with like 100 guests, DJ, catering, the whole show. And I had a family dinner at a mediocre restaurant where they didn't even let me pick the place. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. Everything that happened later. The signs were there, clear as day. Brianna had learned from a young age that she could do whatever she wanted, and my parents would defend her, protect her, justify anything she did. And I had learned that no matter how hard I tried, I would never be enough for them. But I kept trying anyway. You know? Because they were my parents and Brianna was my sister, and in some stupid corner of my brain I thought that someday things would change, that someday they would really see me. Things reached a breaking point when we were in our senior year of college. We both went to the same university, another decision my parents made for me. Because Brianna wanted to go there and I obviously had to follow her, but we studied different majors. I studied graphic design and she studied communications. For one of my most important classes in the last semester, we had to write a huge essay about design theory and its impact on modern advertising. I killed myself writing that thing. Like I spent weeks researching, drafting, polishing every paragraph. I was really proud of that essay. It was probably the best academic work I had done in my life. Turns out Brianna also had an important essay for one of her classes, about media communications or something like that, and the damn girl asked me to show her my essay, supposedly to get inspired, to see how to structure hers. I, like an idiot, showed it to her. I trusted her. She was my twin sister, right? So I submitted my essay on a Monday, and by Wednesday of that week I got called to the dean's office. When I got there, my professor was there, the dean, and a professor from the communications department I didn't know. They told me my essay had been plagiarized. And I thought, what? No, there has to be a mistake. I wrote every word of that. But no. Turns out the plagiarism wasn't that someone had copied my work, but that I had supposedly copied someone else's work. Brianna had taken my essay, changed some words here and there, adjusted the focus to be more about communications than design, and submitted it as her own 2 days before I submitted mine. She submitted on Friday, I submitted on Monday. So when they ran the papers through the anti-plagiarism software, mine flagged as a copy of hers. I can't even describe what I felt in that moment. It was like the floor had opened up under my feet. I tried to explain to them that it was my work, that I had written it, that I had all the drafts on my computer with earlier dates, that I could show them my complete research process. They called Brianna to the office, and there we were, the two of us sitting in front of the dean, and she looked at me with that face, how can you accuse me of this face? She acted perfectly, like she started crying and everything, said she had worked super hard on her essay, and that she couldn't believe her own sister was accusing her of plagiarism. But here's the thing. I had proof. I had all my drafts saved on my computer, each version with its date and time of creation. I had my research notes, my annotations, even text conversations with classmates where I discussed ideas for the essay weeks earlier. Brianna had none of that. Her only evidence was that she had submitted first. The investigation lasted like 2 weeks, and in the end it was clear, completely clear, that the essay was mine and that she had stolen it. The university blacklisted her. They didn't expel her because technically she was almost graduating, but it went on her permanent record. She couldn't participate in the graduation ceremony, and basically she was marked. No decent graduate program was going to accept her with that on her record. And the worst part, what really broke my heart, was that when everything came to light, when it was proven beyond a doubt that Brianna had lied and stolen my work, my parents blamed me. My mom called me crying, screaming at me about how I could have ruined my sister's life, why I hadn't let the matter go, that sisters support each other. My dad told me I was selfish, that I had always been jealous of Brianna, that this was simply my way of sabotaging her success. Can you believe it? She stole from me, lied to me, almost ruined my academic record, and I was the villain for reporting it. That was the last straw, honestly. After that, I cut contact with all of them. Well, not completely at first, like low contact. I'd respond to occasional messages. I'd go to very awkward Christmas dinners where everyone acted like nothing had happened. But basically, I built my life separate from them. And for a while, for like 2 years after graduating, things were good. I got a decent job. Then I started freelancing. I moved to a small but nice apartment. I made new friends. I met Alex in my senior year of college, a few months after all the plagiarism drama. He studied engineering. He was super sweet, very attentive, and he became my best friend before we started dating. He was the first person in my life who made me feel like I was the priority. You know? That I mattered, that my feelings were valid, that I deserved to be loved and valued. We dated for 4 years. 4 years. And they were good years. Seriously. Alex knew my whole story with my family. He knew about the favoritism, about Brianna, everything. Or at least I thought he did. He was always super understanding about the fact that I didn't have contact with my family. He never pressured me to reconcile with them. He always supported me. We built this life together. You know, we had plans. We talked about the future, about having kids eventually, about buying a house. When Alex proposed to me, it was perfect. It was on a beach at sunset, yeah, super cliche, but I loved it. He had this beautiful ring he had specifically designed for me, and when he told me he wanted to spend the rest of his life with me, I felt like finally, I had my own family, a family that chose me, that loved me, that saw me for who I really was. I said yes without hesitating for a second. We started planning the wedding immediately. I was so excited, like it was all I could talk about. We booked a beautiful venue, a hotel on the outskirts of the city with incredible gardens. We hired really good catering. I picked out a dress that cost me like 3 months of savings, but it was perfect. My guest list was small, basically close friends and some coworkers. I didn't include my family, obviously. Why would I want them there after everything that had happened? But then, like 6 months before the wedding, Alex started with this thing about how I should invite my family, that it was my wedding, that it was an important day, that they would surely regret not being there, that I would regret later not having invited them. At first I told him no, that he didn't understand how things had been, that I didn't want that kind of negativity on the happiest day of my life. But he insisted and insisted, like he brought up the topic every week. He said things like marriage was about uniting families, that he really wanted his future in-laws to be present, that his mom Susan was asking why she hadn't met my parents yet. And I, like an idiot, started to doubt. I thought, well, maybe he's right. Maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe my wedding day is an opportunity to start fresh. Besides, Alex was super insistent about this. more than he had been about anything else in our relationship, and I started to feel this pressure that if I didn't give in, he was going to think I was the problematic one. So, like 3 months before the wedding, I agreed to meet with my parents, just to talk, to see if there was any possibility that things could be different. Alex arranged everything, coordinated with my parents, which already seemed weird to me because how did he have their numbers? But whatever. And we agreed to meet at a neutral cafe. When I arrived at the cafe that Saturday afternoon, Alex was already there with my parents, and Brianna was there too. Nobody had told me Brianna was going to be there. Nobody asked me if I was okay with that. They just ambushed me with her there, sitting next to my mom, with that fake smile I knew so well. I froze at the entrance of the cafe. I literally couldn't move. Alex saw me and waved for me to come over. All smiles like this was perfectly normal. My parents were there acting like the last 3 years of estrangement hadn't existed, and Brianna was looking at me with that expression I knew meant trouble. I walked up to the table, but I didn't sit down. I asked Alex what was going on, why he hadn't told me Brianna was going to be there. He said he thought it would be a good surprise, that it was time for the whole family to get together, that we needed to resolve things before the wedding. My mom started with her typical speech about how we were family, that family forgives, that enough time had passed. My dad said Brianna had matured a lot, that she regretted what she had done, that she deserved another chance. And Brianna had the nerve to say she was so sorry about what happened in college, that she had been young and stupid, that she hoped we could start fresh as sisters. All this with Alex sitting there, nodding, like he agreed with everything. I felt like I was in a horror movie. Seriously. It was surreal. I told them no, that this wasn't right, that they had ambushed me, that Alex had no right to do this without consulting me first. I got up and left the cafe. Alex followed me to the parking lot, trying to calm me down, saying I was overreacting, that he just wanted to help, that his intention was good. I told him he had crossed the line, that this wasn't helping, that this was betrayal. We had a horrible fight right there in the parking lot, with people staring at us. In the end, I drove alone to my apartment, furious and hurt, and feeling like something was very wrong. That was 1 week before the wedding. 1 week. Alex sent me messages that night apologizing, saying he had screwed up, that he was so sorry. I told him I needed space to think. He said he understood. And then, silence. He didn't come back to the apartment we shared that night. I thought maybe he had stayed at a friend's house to give me space. The next day, he didn't show up either. No answering messages, no calls, nothing. 2 days passed. 3. 4. I was starting to panic. The wedding was days away, and my fiancé had disappeared. I called his mom, Susan. I called his friends. Everyone said they didn't know where he was. Or, so they said. By the 5th day, I had to start making decisions. I called the hotel and canceled the reservation. I lost the deposit, like $5,000. But what else could I do? I called the catering, the photographers, the DJ. I canceled everything. Some gave me back part of the money, others didn't. I had to send messages to all the guests saying the wedding was postponed indefinitely for personal reasons. The 7th day after the fight, after Alex completely ghosted me for a week, I finally received a message from him. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an explanation. It was a photo. A photo of him in a suit, smiling, with Brianna next to him in a wedding dress. The message said, "I'm sorry. I know this is horrible, but I realized who I should really be with. I hope someday you can forgive us." He married my sister, on the date that was supposed to be our wedding, at a civil courthouse. Nothing fancy, but still. He married my twin sister a week after disappearing. To this day, I can't fully process how someone can do something like that, how you can be with someone for 4 years, propose to them, plan a life together, and then just trade them for their sister like you're changing cereal brands at the supermarket. The following months were the worst of my life. And look, I've had difficult days, but this was another level. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't work. I lost like 10 kilos in 2 months. My friends were super worried about me. I started going to therapy because I literally couldn't function. All the money I had saved for the wedding, for the future with Alex, Went to cancellations, lost deposits, therapy, just surviving because I couldn't work well. What hurt me most wasn't just that Alex had left me. It was how he did it. The ghosting, the cowardice, the fact that he chose the person who had hurt me most in my entire life. It was like he had specifically designed the cruelest possible way to end things. And my parents, of course, were happy. According to what I found out later from mutual friends, they were delighted that Alex was now part of the family, that Brianna had found true love, that things had turned out the way they should. I blocked everyone everywhere. Alex, Brianna, my parents, any relative who tried to contact me. I deleted all my social media because I couldn't stand the idea of seeing photos of them together, happy, living the life that was supposed to be mine. I moved to a new apartment because I couldn't be in the place where I had lived with Alex. I changed my phone number. I basically erased that part of my life and tried to start from scratch. And slowly, very slowly, I started to rebuild myself. Therapy helped a lot. My therapist made me see that I hadn't done anything wrong, that what happened to me was pure betrayal, and that I didn't have to forgive anyone if I didn't want to. I started working more, focusing on my career. I made new friends who didn't know anything about my story and with whom I could just be me. I adopted a cat, which sounds silly, but that cat saved me on many bad nights. Things weren't perfect, but at least they were manageable. A year passed. A full year. I was in a much better place. I had accepted that that part of my life was over and that I was never going to have answers or closure or whatever you're supposed to need. And then, I received a message from Susan, Alex's mom. I don't know how she got my new number, probably through some mutual friend. The message said she needed to talk to me urgently, that please give her a chance, that there were things I needed to know. Initially, I ignored her. I didn't want to know anything about that family. But she kept trying, sending messages every couple of days, each time more desperate. Finally, after 2 weeks, I agreed to meet with her. We met at a Starbucks, and when I arrived, Susan was there, waiting for me. She looked horrible, honestly. She had dark circles under her eyes. She had lost weight. You could tell she had been crying a lot. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. She sat down and started talking, and what she told me was like an episode of a cheap soap opera. Turns out that everything, absolutely everything that had happened, had been orchestrated by Brianna and my parents. During those 6 months before the wedding, while Alex was insisting that I reconcile with my family, Brianna and my parents had been working on him. They contacted him in secret, invited him to cafes and lunches without me knowing. They became his friends. They filled his head with lies about me. They told him I was the problematic sister, the manipulative one, the one who had always been jealous of Brianna. They told him a completely distorted version of the plagiarism story, where I had been the one who copied and then accused Brianna to save myself. They told him I was mentally unstable, that I had anger issues, that my family was worried about Alex because I was emotionally abusive. All lies. All completely fabricated. And Brianna made her master move. She started messaging with Alex, supposedly to talk about me, to help us reconcile. But according to Susan, each conversation was Brianna positioning herself as the concerned sister, the reasonable person, the one who really wanted the best for everyone. She presented herself as this sweet soul who just wanted her family to be together again, and Alex, the idiot, believed it all. By the time we got to that meeting at the cafe, the ambush with my whole family, Alex was already convinced I was the problem. Susan told me he genuinely thought he was helping me, that he was doing the right thing by forcing a reconciliation. And when I reacted badly, when I left the cafe furious, that confirmed in his mind everything my family had told him about me, that I was irrational, temperamental, incapable of forgiving. After that fight in the parking lot, Alex went straight to Brianna, and she consoled him, told him she understood, that I had always been like that he didn't deserve that kind of treatment. One thing led to another. Susan didn't give me specific details there, but basically Brianna seduced Alex at a moment when he was vulnerable and confused. And the coward, instead of talking to me, instead of trying to resolve things, disappeared and decided he was in love with my sister. But here comes the part that made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. Susan told me that the marriage between Alex and Brianna was never real, not in the romantic sense, Alex married her as a kind of, I don't know, escape route, I guess. Because by the time he realized he might have made a mistake, a week had already passed, I had already canceled everything, and he was too embarrassed and cowardly to admit he had screwed up. So when Brianna proposed they get married anyway, he said yes because, in his words, according to Susan, it was easier than facing what he had done. They planned to get divorced after a few months, when the scandal calmed down. It was temporary. A solution to save face. But Brianna had other plans. Once they got married, she refused to sign the divorce. She told Alex she really loved him, that she wanted to make the marriage work, to give it a chance. And Alex, trapped in the situation he himself had created, didn't know how to get out without looking even worse than he already did. Susan told me Alex had been miserable that whole year, that he slept in the guest room, that he barely talked to Brianna, that he had been trying to find a way to divorce without causing more drama. But Brianna is cunning. She always has been. She made sure my parents were on her side, that the whole family pressured Alex to give the marriage a chance. She had him trapped. And then, like 3 months ago, according to Susan, Brianna got drunk at a family dinner and spilled all the truth, in front of Alex, in front of Alex's parents, in front of everyone. She admitted she had planned everything from the beginning, that she had seen photos of me with Alex on social media and decided she wanted him for herself. She admitted she had manipulated every conversation, every interaction, to get to that point. And worst of all, she admitted she had never forgiven me for reporting the plagiarism, that this was her way of getting revenge, of taking away the only good thing I had in my life. Alex, according to Susan, was devastated. He finally saw Brianna for what she really was. He finally understood that everything my parents and Brianna had told him about me were lies. He realized he had destroyed the best relationship of his life, that he had hurt the person who really loved him, for a manipulator who just wanted to win, who just wanted to prove she was better than me at everything, even at stealing my boyfriend. Susan told me all this through tears. She told me Alex had been begging her to contact me, that he needed to talk to me, that he needed to apologize, that he still loved me, that he would do anything to fix things. She gave me a letter. He had written, like 10 pages of handwritten letter, where he supposedly explained everything and asked for my forgiveness. She begged me to at least read it, to give him a chance to talk. And I sat there, drinking my coffee that was already cold, listening to all this. And the only thing I felt was nothing. Well, not nothing exactly. I felt anger, of course, for everything that had happened, for everything they had taken from me. But toward Alex specifically, I felt nothing. Not love, not hate, not even satisfaction knowing he was suffering. It was like I was listening to a stranger's story. I told Susan I wasn't going to read the letter. I told her I didn't care if Alex had finally understood the truth, because that didn't change anything about what he had done to me. I told her he was an adult when he made all those decisions, that he had multiple opportunities to talk to me, to trust me over people he had literally just met, and that he chose to believe them. I told her that the fact that he had been manipulated didn't absolve him of his cowardice, of ghosting me, of marrying my sister on what should have been my wedding day. Susan tried to argue that people make mistakes, that Alex really loved me, that he deserved a second chance. I told her no, that some things can't be fixed, and this was one of those things, and that he could live with the consequences of his decisions, just like I had had to live with the consequences of his actions for the last year. I told her he has exactly what he deserves, to be trapped in a marriage with a woman who manipulated him, a woman he doesn't love, knowing he destroyed something real for something completely false. I took the letter without opening it and gave it back to Susan. I told her to tell Alex I was fine, that I had moved on, that I would find someone who would really value me, someone who would trust me, someone who wouldn't abandon me at the first sign of trouble. I told her I never wanted to hear from any of them ever again. I got up and left. I blocked Susan's new number as soon as I left Starbucks. And you know what? I feel good about that decision. A lot of people have told me I should at least listen to what Alex has to say, that forgiveness is for yourself, not for the other person, all that self-help book garbage. But I don't owe forgiveness to anyone. I don't owe closure to Alex. I don't have to be the magnanimous person who understands and forgives in order to move on. I already moved on, without his apology, without his explanations, without his presence in my life. The truth is, Alex can live with the knowledge that he chose wrong, that he traded something real for an illusion, that he let himself be manipulated so easily. He can live, knowing he lost me, that he's never going to get back what we had, that he ruined his own life for nothing. That's his punishment, and it's enough for me. And Brianna, well, Brianna got what she wanted, I guess. She got my boyfriend. She got a marriage. She got to prove she could have what I had. But she's trapped with someone who hates her, who's only with her out of legal obligation, who's probably looking for divorce lawyers right now. That's her prize. A few weeks ago, I was cleaning my apartment and I found a photo of Alex and me from like 3 years ago, on a trip we took to the beach. We looked so happy, so in love, so sure of our future together. I looked at it for a while and then threw it in the trash. Not with anger, not with sadness. I just threw it away because it didn't mean anything anymore. That person in the photo, that version of me who believed in eternal love and family and happy endings, doesn't exist anymore, and that's okay. The person I am now is stronger, smarter, more careful about who I let into my life. I still go to therapy. I'll probably keep going for a while. Not because I'm devastated or depressed, but because it's good to have that space to process everything. My therapist says I've done incredible work rebuilding myself after such a huge trauma. She says the fact that I was able to set such clear boundaries with Susan, with that whole situation, shows a level of healing and strength that many people never reach. I don't know if it's true, but I like to think it is. My life now is simple but good. I work from home. I have my design projects that keep me busy. I have friends who really value me. I went on a couple of dates last month. Nothing serious yet, but that's okay. I'm not in a hurry. Eventually I'll find someone. Or I won't. And both options are fine. What's important is that now I know what I'm not going to tolerate. I know I deserve respect, honesty, loyalty. I know that if someone asks me to forgive people who have repeatedly hurt me, that's a giant red flag. I know that family isn't just blood. It's the people you choose to have in your life, the people who choose you. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if Alex hadn't insisted I invite my family to the wedding. If we had simply gone ahead with our plans, gotten married, surrounded by friends, had our life together without the toxicity of my family. But then I think that if he was capable of doing what he did, if he was so easily manipulated, if he was such a coward, then it's better it happened before we got married, before we had kids, before I was even more tied to him. In a way, Brianna did me a favor. She showed me exactly who Alex was before it was too late to get out of that relationship without lawyers and division of assets. I don't know what happened with them after my meeting with Susan. They're probably still married. Probably still miserable. Maybe they finally got divorced. I don't know, and I honestly don't care. My parents probably still think Brianna is perfect, and I'm the problematic daughter. Let them think what they want. It's not my problem anymore. I don't have to carry the need for them to see me, to value me, to treat me like a real daughter, anymore. What's clear to me after all this is that forgiveness isn't mandatory, that you can heal without forgiving, that you can move on without needing closure from the people who hurt you, and that sometimes the best revenge isn't doing anything. It's simply living well, being happy, and letting the people who betrayed you live with their decisions. Alex is going to live the rest of his life knowing he destroyed something beautiful for a lie. Brianna is going to live knowing she won a battle, but lost any possibility of having a real and genuine relationship with someone. My parents are going to live with one less daughter, without knowing who I really am, what I've accomplished, what my life is like, and I'm going to live. I'm simply going to live. Without them, without that weight, without that constant need to prove my worth to people who were never going to see it anyway. And that's enough for me.